Let me turn my recording back on here. But it hinges upon collaboration. We collaborate with different departments here at the university, but also we collaborate with the partnering organization as well. And that's the success of the program for the students and for us, is that partnership that we have with the other partnering organizations. Again, I want to thank you personally for your taking your time and for working with David during this 3 years. It's been a long process for him. And as we tell people, the project is really the student, is really David. More than what they do is for them to build their leadership capacity. And that is a reflection of the organization and the leader that they mentor under. And we certainly appreciate all that you've done. David has, from our end, David has been an exemplary student. He's been a leader in class and in the university during the time that he's been with us. And again, that's a reflection of you and your organization. We really appreciate that.
Well, I don't know if he agrees with you in terms of my involvement, but I tell you one thing, I know that it has been a stress test for him. Mm-hmm. His crazy president here has just piled it on and heaped it on during a very, very difficult time for him. But I will say that he has stood the test. That stress test is only going to help make him a better leader going forward. And I am a firm believer in collaboration. Being president of various small colleges, I know how important it is to collaborate and the synergy that is created when one does that. So I applaud you all for your efforts and how you have structured your doctoral program to incorporate that.
Well, thank you. We are firm believers in the collaboration stakeholder model. It comes back to our motto at Gardner-Webb, Pro et Deo Humanitate, for God and humanity. Our charge is to be servant leaders and be collaborators in our communities. And we take that very, very, very seriously. I see our fourth and final person is here. I will apologize up front. Dr. Jeff Hamilton, the program coordinator, is not here this morning. He's had a family emergency. Dr. Conrad Martin will be joining as the third member of our doctoral panel this morning. Dr. Martin is connecting now. And as soon as he gets in, there he is. Good morning, Dr. Martin. He's muted himself, and so Conrad, if you will unmute and introduce yourself to Dr. Elam this morning, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Hi, Dr. Elam. Good morning. I've gotten to work with David the past 2 semesters in our organizational leadership program.
We're pleased to meet you.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started this morning. Now that we have a quorum for our meeting, we'll go ahead and get started. So, David, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to make you the host so that you can share your screen and go ahead and start your presentation this morning. I'm going to make you the host. All right, and when you get through, if you will unshare your screen, I will bring us back to our group. There we go. Thank you.
Oh, can everybody see my PowerPoint?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first I want to say good morning and thanks for the opportunity to present to you this morning my consultancy project on transformational organizational change in the community college facilities department. And I'll start with a quote. And the quote is, "There's nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle than to initiate a new order of things." And that's a quote that's in my literature review. That's from John Cotter and Leonard Schlesinger's article, Choosing Strategies for Change, from back in 1979. But it seemed very applicable to start with that, of the importance of change, but also how difficult and dangerous it can be. I'll jump into a slide about background. And the background, let me begin with a timeline before really getting into the slide in any detail. I was hired here at what in the paper, in the abstract, I had described as my participating organization, which is Halifax Community College. I was hired in October of 2017, and Dr. Elam was brought in as president, as the new president, in February of 2017. So both he and I came in the same year in 2017, and certainly have encountered a number of opportunities to make change and to grow the organization. At the time I was hired, the organization lacked a budget, really lacked financial controls overall, as it overspent the state budget the previous year before I got here by about $300,000. And it also ended in 2016-17 fiscal year in June 30th, 2017, with essentially $0 in the coffer of reserve for county funds. Certainly all those would be a challenge for anybody coming in, as certainly an opportunity to correct what I'm going to talk about related to facilities department. So one thing that I had noticed when I come in, that there was an outsourced contract, an independent contractor who was tasked with both landscaping, custodial, and maintenance, and that included 40.3% of the overall county budget, which I consider to be a high amount. Now, the county budget is comprised additionally of security personnel, and it's also used to pay for electricity and also insurance. So it pays utilities and insurance also as additional cost. And then on top of all that, ideally, a county budget has some money set aside for capital outlay for infrastructure. But in the case of what I walked into, there was no money for any capital outlay. In fact, all the money had been spent just on general operations for those other items I included in this previous conversation, but also included 40.3% of the overall county funds were going towards paying this contract, which I consider to be high. So one of the things that I also noticed in this was there was a general lack of efficiency from the independent contractor. We weren't really getting the quality that we expected on campus that was seen by student services. They initiate a survey of campus, and we've got feedback from students, and also I'd get feedback from employees that they didn't like the service they were providing. And also they had a general lack of skills and expertise to do the work that needed to be done on a regular basis. Anything besides just minor jobs of maintenance that we would still have to call some other type of independent contractor, an electrician, a plumber, etc. So that plus the idea that we had no funds at the end of 2017 for any capital outlay led the idea of let's look towards a reorganization, was my thought. This is a 50-year-old campus, and the idea of not having any capital outlay to support the infrastructure of the campus is very detrimental to its overall long-term existence, really. Really, my thought at that point in time was the independent contractor was not doing much except cutting the grass, picking up the trash, and not doing much else. And yet we were paying 40.3% of our budget to them. So it was time to look at an organizational change. There was also a general lack of documentation and planning documents about the state of facilities. And as I say that, I mean that they were here for about 4 years, but they really didn't document changes they made. There was nothing as accumulation of data that helped us prepare for SACs, anything in that regard. None of that was taking place also. So a change was needed. The purpose and the project really focused around 2 transformational goals per Dr. John Carter's articles that I have read. And those 2 primarily focus on reducing costs and being more efficient and effective. And in this case, I ended up presenting an amount of $70,438.91 is what I perceived would be our reduction of our overall cost if in a reorganization we were to bring back inside internally custodial and maintenance functions, while at the same time outsourcing landscaping to another independent contracting firm that's focused only on landscaping. So I presented information after originally vetting it with Dr. Elam. Information was presented in the spring of 2018 to our Board of Trustees about a reorganization to move away from this comprehensive independent contractor to bring back custodial and maintenance functions internally as employees and to outsource landscaping to another vendor, with the idea that we were going to become more efficient and effective. So this was in the very first phase of the overall reorganization. Really overall, there was these items as a total were what I looked at for reorganization. We reorganized the facilities to begin with. Also, there's described in here a remodeling of an early college hallway, which I'll talk about its significance. There also is documentation that was produced in 2019 for administrative unit review, and also a facilities maintenance plan. And of course, in the whole process is to try to improve the budget. In these phases, I'm going to call that really we have two phases in this overall consultancy project. First was phase one, taking place in 2018. That was of reorganizing facilities and also remodeling an early college hallway. And those occurred in late 2018, as I mentioned, and these other two occurred in phase two and later in 2008 and 2019, with still an overall focus on improving our overall budget situation. In terms of my literature review and other resources, other slides, other sources that we looked at, I consider many change models for organizational change. I looked at the ADKAR model, the Kurt Lewin's model, which we've discussed in the DEOL program, and also John Carter's model. And just a little bit behind those, the ADKAR model created by Jeff Hyatt, it's got 5 steps to it. Its first one is A, symbolizes an awareness. That's an awareness of the need for change. Secondly, the D is the desire for the support for a change to occur. The K is the knowledge for the change, how the change actually would occur. The A is the ability to reinforce, demonstrate the skills and behavior for that change to occur. And then finally, the R is reinforcement for that change to stick. Lewin's model that we've studied in DEOL program is a 3-step model. It's shorter, sweeter, to the point. It's got a first step of unfreezing, a second step of the change process occurring, and a third step of refreezing. And in the unfreezing, that's where the leader determines what needs to be changed. An insurance of support across the organization occurs, and the creation of the need for that to occur. In Lewin's second step, the change is where the major part of action takes place. That's where employees get involved and the act takes place of the actual change. Knowledge is shared across the organization if needed, and leadership's provided in terms of that change. And then the refreezing part of that is developing long-term stability out of that, sustainability, and that might involve items such as training over the long term to make sure that change does stick. The model that I was most attracted to in the example I'm going to provide in this consultancy project is from John Carter, and he has 8 steps that I'll run through quickly, and I'll elaborate a little further on them later. And the first one of those is creating a sense of urgency. That's an awareness of a problem that's in place. His second one's building a coalition, a team that aids in making that change occur. The third step is forming a strategic vision and creating initiatives. So the leader explains the vision that he or her has across the organization and gets others involved. Fourth is enlisting a volunteer army that is actually getting the others involved in the change taking place. Cotter's 5th step is to enable action by removing any barriers that's in place, making sure there's no resistance in place for the change to occur. The 6th step Cotter has is looking at short-term wins and relishing those and celebrating those. 7th is sustaining acceleration, how change can occur further in that area in the future. And the 8th is instituting change, looking at connections between behaviors and success over the long term. So I was most attracted to Cotter's model. I thought it was more in detail than the others that I've looked at for ADKAR and Lewin. I'd also place greater reliance on leadership from executives. And in this case, the majority of the change that took place has been discussed between Dr. Elam and myself. And we tried to model change that we thought was going to move us in the right direction as an organization. So the change has taken place at the top level of the organization from discussions of topics. And that's another way I was attracted to the Cotter model. And I'll also point out from other sources in terms of the overall consultancy project in the abstract, I've used other colleges as guides, as models. Particularly, I had done so related to the other documents that I'll describe later, the administrative unit change document, and also the facilities maintenance plan document. With those documents, I relied heavily, not as much internally, but more documentation that I found on the internet from other colleges. In terms of the scope of the change was to bring about positive changes for the facilities department of Halifax Community College. And it has with a focus on increasing funding and reducing costs while being more efficient and effective and gathering data to determine the department's currency. And this part really about determining data, gathering data to determine the department's currency relates more to the other documents that I've not get into yet, which are the administrative unit review process and also the facilities maintenance plan. There was not much in the way of documentation in place. So this was a major goal to have more documentation about the organization. Again, I had entered into the organization in 2017, but when I walked in the door, the IT director, who promptly told me he was going to retire in the next month, he also said, "You're my 7th boss in 15 years. You're my 7th vice president of academic services in 15 years. And that much change and chaos in an organization leads to organizations many times with little documentation and little history in place. So this part where there was a focus on determining the currency of the department was really important. The approach. The approach for change was to evaluate problems with Dr. Elam, to involve him on all major initiatives. I also used his vision that he actually had initiated things before I got here, and I was really not completely aware of these at the time I started, and I really wasn't even completely aware of them at the time I started thinking about this as a consultancy project. But in the 2017 strategic plan that was in place before I came, there was a goal of having a facilities maintenance plan in place, which is really strange, almost ironic, because when I did searches on the internet to find a facilities maintenance plan, I only found one other community college in the entire country that I could find one on the internet. So I think it was very rare that that already was in place, but it really is essential to aid in determine the currency of the facilities area. And I'll talk about them more in detail later. The other thing that I evaluated with Dr. Elam in terms of all the projects that we looked at was also the administrative unit review. He had put in place a vision of having an administrative unit review as a committee before I came, and that really is to evaluate service areas. And I piggyback off of that to lead that committee, while at the same time, this was as a new committee, they had not ever had any documentation put in place. So I created a template that I vetted with Dr. Elam and others on campus and presented to the committee to aid in determining how performance is measured in service areas on campus. We already had ways to measure on campus our curriculum area. Curriculum had curriculum reviews, but we didn't have any way to measure performance for service areas. And this was actually a vision that he had in advance before I came. So we did have the inefficient contract that I did want to get rid of. There was the low level of service related to overall facilities based on student satisfaction surveys. And the first step in the approach was to reorganize the facilities overall with a board vote for approval of that in 2018. In terms of an action plan, there were really 2 phases. There's a first phase that took place, a reorganization, that including hiring a new team of custodial and maintenance workers. It included also hiring an independent contractor to pick up landscaping as a task that just does landscaping only. And it also included at a later date an early college remodeling project. This part right here, I would really say, for the overall success of this project related to hiring. And I'm going to go to a quote, which I think might be a mantra for our overall cohort. It's from Jim Collins. It's from Good to Great. If we get the right people on the bus, the right people in the right seats, and the wrong people off the bus, then we'll figure out how to take it someplace great. And that really was the key. The key was hiring people in custodial maintenance, beginning with a facilities director who had a can-do attitude, and he was willing to take on projects of any scope and spectrum within his job responsibilities. And also, I ended up hiring a specialist for HVAC, because we had lots of HVAC issues on campus, and that was something that we didn't have previously. So that creation of a new team with those two in leadership roles, a facilities director and an HVAC specialist, aided a lot in this process of getting folks on the bus in the right seat. The litmus test really of the success of the hiring came out of the gate real quick, because the hiring took place in June and July of 2018. And previous to that, there was conversations that took place for a plan that I had early conversations about early college. We had an early college on campus we have an early college that we were serving from Northampton County that actually did not have a physical location on campus, which to me is opposed to how early colleges are supposed to be run. It was not actually integrated on campus. The students were actually meeting in a middle school, and they weren't coming to campus. So one of my early goals was to essentially say, this is broke. We need to work to fix this. And in the overall vision that was created, the idea was to have the early college from Northampton County move on campus and be part of the integrated campus. To do that, we had to remodel a hallway. And early in the process in 2018, in June, July, and August, was the idea of we received money from Northampton County, and we got less than 2 months to make a remodeling to have them come to campus. This is where it really got to the litmus test for this team that had just been hired. And the facilities director and I planned accordingly, and were able to successfully make this move. So the remodeling took place in that time frame. Now, the seeds were sowed earlier. $200,000 was obtained as additional funds from Northampton County Commissioners, which was the most money they've ever given us on campus, because we are not geographically, they are from a different county, Northampton, and we're actually in Halifax. So it was the most money they've ever given us, which was a novelty in itself. But that project was vetted internally first, involved academics, of course, involved Dr. Elam. We did gain approval from the Board of Trustees. We addressed it with the county commissioners. They gave us funding. Of course, we had to get on board the public school system. The principals and the superintendent were all on board to make this change occur for the remodeling to take place. But it was really a vision to get the early college on campus and to integrate them into campus. But what it was for us in facilities, this was the litmus test to determine if this hiring was correct. Because this hiring took place in June and July, this project had to be completed by the time they walked in the door in the middle of August of 2018. So it was a very quick time frame. It included knocking down walls. It included painting. It included tiling. It included a complete restructuring of a hallway. It included moving furniture out and moving furniture in. It included setting up a serving area for a cafeteria space for food to be prepared. That was all done in a 2-month period. So at that point in time, after that, I knew we had hired the right people. That was at that phase. The second phase of this, the currency of the overall department, let me slide into the part for the Cotter model that was involved in this. This model first involved creating the sense of urgency. The early college needed to come to campus. Secondly, we built a coalition of all those parties involved: Board of Trustees, public school, county commissioners, internal vision also. Third, strategic vision and initiatives. It was presented to the college employees, Board of Trustees, and to our internal board about budgetary support. Volunteers were enlisted in an army. We got local support. We got lots of folks involved. We got folks involved in this project that otherwise normally would be custodial and would be work on cleaning the campus. And they got involved in this project too, because I wanted to make sure everybody was involved in the department. Barriers were knocked down. The can-do attitude took place. We generated short-term wins. We completed the project on time and under budget and sustained the acceleration. A key part of this was also Dr. Elam came back and awarded everybody that was involved in this project for facilities what he called the Above and Beyond Award, which allowed the people working in there to have the public accolades on campus and create that positive mentality that this can be done, and we move forward with a new focus. And then we also move forward finally out of instituting change, the last step in the Cotter model, which we springboarded this into other projects like improving our HVAC on campus and improving our lighting. So it was really used as a springboard initially and moving into other phases and other projects. And phase two, the facilities maintenance plan, this was where I worked to create a template that was presented to Dr. Elam and to also work with our facilities maintenance director. And out of this, what this described was our current state of facilities. It was an evaluation of our current buildings, our roofs, our HVAC inside the buildings, our current state and what our needs are. It also evaluated everything, including vehicles, everything related to facilities were evaluated in that document. So it gave us a picture currently of where we're at. And that was a really good thing for us because it allowed us to springboard into this next document that I created called the Administrative Unit Review. This was a template that was presented to our unit review committee that we have on campus as a new committee. And I vetted that with Dr. Elam. I worked highly with the facilities director, and that was presented to the Administrative Unit Review Committee. That unit review committee approved it without any changes to it. It did include items for service areas to be evaluated. It considered student survey data. It considered needs for future staffing in areas. It considered professional development needs, technology and equipment needs. It also worked towards long-term planning and also included a SWOT analysis of the service area and also their achievements. So that template was presented and was passed without any edits to it to the Administrative Unit Review Committee. After that, I actually used the template to prepare the document for facilities. So facilities was the first out of the gate as the test bunny in this, we could say. I tested it by completing the Administrative Unit Review for facilities area with a lot of help also from the facilities director. This document aided us greatly in planning out for future needs. It also pointed out to us when we evaluated items for long-term, that long-term and short-term, that we had much more in the way of capital needs than we thought. And we went from, in 2019-20, $642,260 of capital requests to the county to $3,179,682 of capital request because of this document's ability to show the grand amount of needs that we had. So our capital went up about 5-fold based off of that. We have a Gantt chart. The Gantt chart shows phase 1, which includes the restructuring and hallway remodel and taking place in 2018 in the fall, and the administrative unit review and facilities maintenance taking place in the fall of 2019. Risk and constraints. Risk and constraints including hiring and outsourcing the vendor, making sure that we got hiring correct was the key, as I mentioned earlier. Also, the key in terms of overall success of this project was the resistance. Employees, the president, the board, the public school were all involved. There was also the county commissioners were involved. We really didn't encounter resistance. What we realized internally that we had plenty of need internally, and that was expressed to the board, and the board was in agreement that we had plenty of need for change. And the board was supportive of the change, just as the president and employees have been. The other key was county funding, and we were able to get $200,000 of additional county funding to complete the project. That would be the early college hallway. In phase two, the concern was a lack of quality information. I was able to obtain enough information off the internet from other colleges to prepare the unit review committee document, the administrative unit review, and the facilities maintenance plan also. So that did not end up in the end being a constraint. The resistance possibility did take place from the administrative unit review committee. That is a possible barrier to success, but that did not take place. That committee passed what I brought forward to them as a template on the first rendition of it. If I look at the quality assurance plan, the Deming model was studied in the DEOL program of Plan, Do, Check, and Act. That was used as a 4-stage approach for quality assurance. Data was gathered from a longitudinal study of improvement for facilities through student satisfaction surveys. That took place from 2017, 18, and 2019. The outcomes are going to be described on the next slide. And additionally, that data was used to make changes. So I'm going to emphasize that took place. The data that was obtained from the surveys, which came from the institutional effectiveness area, I was able to look at those scores, what was low, needed to improve, what also had comments negative from students were items that were worked on for improvement. So that took place each of the years. But I'll talk about the outcomes on the next slide. The other thing in terms of a quality assurance plan, data from the facilities department, a facilities department change questionnaire was created by myself, and that was used to obtain information from the facilities department themselves, how they felt about the overall change. I will mention before I leave it, and I was about to forget this part of it, I did add in 2019 4 additional questions to the student satisfaction surveys, and those primarily related to the grounds, maintenance and grounds, outside appearance of buildings, the appearance of the campus and grounds, and the availability of parking, to get additional feedback related to us going to a new and implementing a new vendor related to the landscaping on campus. In terms of the outcome data that was realized, student satisfaction surveys from 2017 to 19. In 2017, there was a mean overall score of 3.51 of those surveys, and it went up to 3.61 as the actual in 2019. My goal was an increase of 1/10 of 1%, 0.1, and we made that goal. I actually considered a higher goal, which was to set the bar to the average of across the campus, what other service areas had. I really felt, though, that I wasn't going to be able to achieve that because a lot of the comments and negative feedback that we got from students in these surveys related to HVAC on campus and other types of infrastructure that I didn't have the dollars from the college, from the county commissioners to fix at that time. So if I didn't have the funding, I didn't feel confident that I was going to be able to get to that level for the means to go as high as I wanted to be. I didn't include it in the abstract. I think the overall was about 3.65 when I originally calculated this in 2017. So we got close to that, but we didn't quite get to that. But I think some of that I could not have done a whole lot because of the constraint of the dollars involved. But I do want to point out that each of the categories that was measured from 2017 to 2019, each of the categories in the student satisfaction survey for facilities, each one increased. And to me, that showed improvement over time. But I also mentioned that I was concerned that in 2018, in the middle year of the transition, actually most all the scores went down. And that was the year just before getting into the transition. So I was still feeling in 2018 the impact of the old independent contractor that was comprehensive. And it wasn't until 2019 where the change was really apparent. There was also a change questionnaire that took place where I asked a series of questions that were modeled off the Cotter model, the 8 steps of change. I asked it of the 5 individuals that work in facilities only. So the sample size was small. My goal was 3.5 on a 4-point Likert scale. The mean actually came up to 3.36. I'm a little bit disappointed by that, but I have looked at the results, and I'm not sure in terms of facilities if they really took it very seriously or took a lot of time and detail looked at it. 3 of the 5 that responded with the same response to each question, no matter what the question was. 2 individuals responded with 3s all the way. Another one responded with 4s all the way. There was no variability in any of the questions of their answers to the question. So I'm not sure from the sample size, if it was so small also that might cause some data to be in somewhat not reflective of reality. I also was asked in advance before facilities took the questions, does this have anything to do with me having a contract in the future year? It was questioned about if they answer the questions in reality, are they going to be penalized if they don't respond? And obviously I answered it was an anonymous survey, but there was some concern also from the 5 folks that took the survey. But from the overall data that was from this, we did successfully complete a facilities restructuring. A reorganization occurred successfully. Early college was successfully remodeled in time and on budget. An administrative unit review was completed with a template for the overall campus and an analysis particularly of the facilities area by itself. And the facilities maintenance plan was created successfully. My overall reflection, the key was a strong team was hired. The biggest challenge was part-time staffing on the custodial side. We had more turnover in that area than we anticipated originally. I think that is somewhat stabilized now, but we went through a lot of folks on the custodial side when we originally tried to staff part-time. There's not been any change on the full-time side, but part-time staffing in whatever it is in Halifax County tends to be difficult, so we had difficulty doing that. Administrative unit review and facilities maintenance plans assisted in the planning and budgeting, and that can certainly assist us going forward in the future. The county budget challenge does continue to exist. This past year, even though I asked for $3.1 million of capital outlay, they gave us $179,227. That was a $75,000 reduction in the county budget that we have this year. So the needs are not being met for infrastructure, and that's a long-term concern. Final reflection, Cotter's change model I thought functioned well for our transformational change that was incorporated in this project. The areas for future study, someone in the future that might work on dissertation topics. There was not a whole lot of theory and applicability that was related to the research for Cotter's approach. Cotter's approach seemed to be very relied upon by for-profit businesses and tended to be popular that way, but little research exists exactly to the success of implementing using his 8-step model, which is a newer model. And then additionally, how adding an administrative review process aids higher education service areas could be another area of dissertation for someone else in the future, because the connection, the correlation and greater depth between the use of this as a tool to evaluate service areas to get to higher levels of performance could be something looked at in a dissertation in the future. And I appreciate your time, and that's my presentation.
Well, thank you, David. At this time, we will open the floor for questions for David about his presentation. And then we'll go to a comment section. And then we will excuse David, and I have a couple of questions, and then we'll bring David back to the group. At this time, questions for David. Okay, having no questions, now we'll move to the comment section. Dr. Elam, we'll start with you for comments on David's presentation and/or his project this morning.
Thank you for this opportunity to work with David. As I stated earlier, I am a strong believer in collaboration and collaborative processes. Being the president of a small institution, I recognize the importance and the synergy that can be developed from working together. This is my second opportunity to work with Mr. Forrester as a CFO of an institution. And his skills in that area are impeccable. But when he presented to me the opportunity to collaborate and to look at how we could improve the financial efficiency on a long-term basis for the institution in that transformational way, it perked my interest very much. And we talked about how, what he could do that could help on a long-term basis with the institution, and coming up with the maintenance, facilities maintenance plan, as well as having the foresight to see how we could better improve the administrative review process on campus. I think were two initiatives that really perked my interest. I think that he has done an excellent job in helping to move those projects forward, in restructuring the physical plant area for efficiency. I think we had a lot of disbelievers in the beginning, particularly among our board members, to say that we could take the current structure that we inherited, redo that in a more efficient manner, and then produce a model that actually improve the college for long term, be able to sustain it, and give us the ability to make some internal changes that were lasting. I think he's done that. He's improved the service delivery through this project. We have also been able to improve the physical plant and maintenance and infrastructure of the institution. We went from not being able to pay our bills on a monthly basis to being, and actually having a very poor relationship with vendors in the area. They didn't want to work with us because they may not get paid. And we've been, through that restructuring, be able to turn that perception around, been able to meet and pay our bills, as well as deal with a lot of the improvements necessary to run a small business. And that's what we've been looking at. We're looking at ways he's embraced the philosophy of my wanting to create an environment of inquiry. He's collected data so that he can have informed decision making, and we'll have improved the delivery of financial efficiency. It has created a very high level of financial efficiency now that helps us to make our budget instead of having to wonder how we are going to meet our budget, and if we're going to. So a lot of change has taken place as a result of the consultancy project. And I think that he should be proud of himself and his leadership that he's provided in that area, because I know that I am.
Well, thank you. Dr. Martin?
Yes, thank you. I love this project. As far as questions and comments about the process and everything, I feel like we could talk all day. This is a tremendous project, tremendous work. I'll sum up by saying, just having known David only for the past 6 months, it makes a lot of sense seeing everything come together this way, because it really brings together not only his analytical mind, but also his caring for the people that are involved in the process. And those are two vital pieces to the puzzle that will allow for change to happen. And as we've gotten into the course where we're studying adaptive leadership, one of the things we say is adaptive leadership requires loss. Well, with change, something is always going to be lost. And, you know, David, while being able to do the analytical side while still having that compassion and empathy for the people that are affected, really makes it, I won't say easier because it's never easy, but makes it much more feasible and much less painful, I would have to imagine, in practice than it could be otherwise. So anyway, David, thank you so much for sharing this information. And I really appreciated what you've shared in class as well regarding your project. Excellent work.
Thank you, Dr. Martin.
Thank you. David, I appreciate the scholarship that's gone into your project. As you know, I'm on the quantitative side of things. My only suggestion going forward, believe it or not, it's in the qualitative arena. The group of 5 that you surveyed anonymously, I would encourage you to move that from a survey to a focus group to further Dr. Elam's vision of collaboration and input from your stakeholders. We many times start with quantitative work survey, but you know, for the richness of data, for the collaboration piece, as you know, we eventually have to move into the qualitative work, and that would be a more collaborative model for that group of 5. Once they get past this, you know, am I going to be tested on this? Am I going to be punished for this? Is this about my job? When you can get past that, then the input that they can bring is you can't put a value on that. It's a richness of data that all organizations need. I said that for Dr. Hamilton, who's not here this morning. He's the qualitative person in our department, so I made that point for him. We miss him this morning. I don't have anything else at this time. I have no questions. We've done our comments. So I only have to ask Dr. Elam a couple questions. So David, I'm going to ask you to go. I'm going to create a breakout room. I'm going to open all rooms, and you should be the only one who joins the room, and Dr. Martin and Dr. Elam will stay with me.
Okay. Yes, sir, Dr. Lamb, and thank you for your comment there about improvement.
Okay. All right. Dr. Elam, thank you again for partnering with us at Gardner Webb. That's really the success of the program, is the partnerships that are created. And again, the project wasn't really about saving money or putting processes in place. The project was really about David and about him developing his leadership, as you pointed out, throughout this process. And so I only have 2 questions. Number 1, did David and his project have a significant impact on your organization?
The short answer is yes. And if you want me to delineate how I can do that as well, I know that leadership is about being able to lead people. And that has been one of the major challenges that he has had to face in addition to trying to move his project forward. Because since he's been in place, trying to keep employees in place in his division has been a challenge. And they're not all leaving, but some of them have had some personal life challenges and changes in their lives that have had them to leave and not be in place for a while in terms of people, families growing, etc. They've had to have time off to address those things. He has had some people get promoted out away from him, and he's been able to backfill with the right people on the bus, so to speak, and in the place. I often tell employees at the college that we can't close down. We've got to find a way to change the tire while the car is moving, and that's what he has been able to do very well while moving things forward, trying to find the right people to replace while the vehicle is still moving. So he's done it very well.
Thank you.
I think he has met the challenges of identifying issues that need to be addressed as he moved the project forward as well. For instance, the administrative unit review. He made a recommendation back to me after looking at the documentation that one of the key pieces that was missing was a budgetary piece for the administrative review, so that we could again make sure that we tied improvement to the budget through our planning council. So that was a much needed and added, a positively added piece of the project, and he made that recommendation.
Very good. Thank you. All right. The only other question that I have this morning, and I'll start with you, and then I'll go to Dr. Martin. Do you know of any reason that Gardner-Webb should not confer a terminal degree on David Forrester?
I have none.
Very good. Thank you. Dr. Martin?
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. Yeah, David
right.
is excellent.
All right.
Excellent.
Wow. All right. Thank you both. I'll bring David back. All right, there he is. I'll be the first to welcome you back, Dr. David Forrester. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your project. Congratulations on your scholarship and the work that you've done. And as a reminder, the project was really all about you and about leadership. And so I'll give you your charge now for going forward. For those who receive much, much is required. As Dr. Hamilton always says, people previously ask you what you thought. Now they will ask you what you know, because you have a terminal degree. You have that responsibility now to be a lifelong learner. This is just the beginning of your educational journey. Your task now is, if you don't know, is to find out, to ask, to be a scholar. We're proud of you and the work that you've done. We're proud that we got to partner with Halifax Community College and Dr. Elam. That has been a very successful partnership. Your project has been very successful. We commend you. We congratulate you. At this time, I will give you the opportunity for anything that you would like to say to the assembled group.
Well, gentlemen, first I'd just like to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your spending time with me today on this special day. I'd also like to focus on Gardner-Webb and for what it has given to me. And I've enjoyed the small classes, the ambiance, the environment, the Christian environment that it provides as a private college, but also just the focus and the directive, as you're mentioning, Dr. Lamb, of focused learning going forward in the future. It's a continuous process of improvement. This is a special day for me, but it's one day moving forward towards continuous improvement. But I've enjoyed my time at Gardner-Webb greatly, and thank you for all your support. Dr. Elam, I thank you for all your support.
It's been my pleasure.
My pleasure. David, we started this process together 3 years ago. Y'all had to endure me to start with. I'm surprised that any of you stuck around. And then you had to have me for methodology, which made it even worse. But I appreciate the scholarship and the collegiality over the time. We've talked and worked together physically in the same place and emailed and Zoomed, and it's been a pleasure on my part. You've been a tremendous asset to our institution. At this time, if you will allow me, we're going to close with prayer. I'm going to move away from the traditional prayer to one that is my favorite and is most timely, I believe. And so if you will indulge me, our closing prayer this morning is from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As we bow our heads, O God, we thank thee for thy church founded upon thy word that challenges us to do more than sing and pray, but to go out and work as though the very answer to our prayers depended upon us and not upon thee. Help us to realize that man was created to shine like the stars and live on through all eternity. Keep us, we pray, in perfect peace. Help us to walk together, pray together, sing together, and live together until the day when all God's children, black, white, red, and yellow, will rejoice in one common band of humanity and the kingdom of our Lord and of our God. We pray, amen.
Amen. Amen.
David, thank you for choosing Gardner Webb. Thank you for choosing the DEOL program. Dr. Elam, thank you for partnering with us. Dr. Martin, thank you for joining us and for your contribution to the program as well. Everybody have a good day. Thank you very much.
You too. Thank you.